Hello everybody and welcome back to Tehillim Treasures, where every week we will be discussing and learning the next two chapters of Tehillim, beginning from the first chapter going all the way in Mitzvah Hashem to the 150th chapter of Tehillim. Tehillim Treasures is brought to you by two wonderful organizations, Chazaq, who has been Chazaq Yidden and strengthened and encouraged Jews for the last many years and continues to do so. And their content is exceptional. Please support them in any way you can. Secondly, Chickens for Shabbos, that provides chickens for Shabbos for those in need, for Melamdim, for Rabbeim who do not have the necessary funds, for people who are alone, for Grushas, for divorced women, and Agunis, for women who Nebuch cannot get a get. Please do everything you can to support these wonderful organizations. Every penny goes to tzedakah, and it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. Chapter 9, Perek Tes. Now, a number of years ago, I wrote an album with Baruch Levine, the incredibly talented Baruch Levine. And the album was called Touched by a Niggin. And the title track of that album was Touched by a Niggin. And it's about the power of song. And one of the songs that we referenced in that song was the song of David HaMelech. This kapitel, Lamnatseach Almus Labein Mizmor LeDavid. David HaMelech sings a song, Almus Labein. And there's many pshatim, many explanations as to what Almus Labein refers to. One explanation is that it refers to Avshalom. Avshalom was the son, the rebellious son of David HaMelech, and even though he was rebellious, David HaMelech sang a mizmar about him. Number two is Labain is the same letters as Novel. Novel HaKarmeli, a noted enemy of David HaMelech. And when David HaMelech was victorious over Novel, he composed the Niggin. Number three, Al-Mus is the same letters as Alamois. Alamois is an instrument, and it's referencing this instrument when David HaMelech composed this song. And finally, Labain is a shortened version of Lahavin, to understand. And David HaMelech was composing a song trying to comprehend and to understand the events that happen. But Reb Shimshon Pincus gives a last pshat. And this pshat is what the song that we wrote was based on. He says, Almus Labain is on the death of his son. David HaMelech composes a mizmar, a song, a lamnatseach, about the death of his own child, who lived for a short period of time, and then he died. And David sang a song, a mizmar for his grief. Who sings a song on the death of a child? And perhaps if we look at the number of this kapitel, we'll better understand it. The number of this kapitel is kapitel Tes, the 9th. And the number 9, Tisha Mi'odea, we sing Seder night. Tisha Mi'odea, who knows 9? Tisha Yarche Leda. 9 are the months in which a baby's born. 9 months of pregnancy. Now, isn't that interesting? Why would Hashem make the months the number 9? We think of the number 10 as perfection. The number 9 as falling one short. Why would the amounts of months that a woman carries the baby be the number 9? And the answer is that Hashem does not want perfection from us. That is not what He expects. We are human beings. And sometimes when life is not perfect, that is the moment that we sing. Because when there's no perfection, then we learn to appreciate the moments that Hashem does give us those gifts. And therefore, the 9 months of pregnancy signify a child that maybe is born into an imperfect world. And perfection is not expected. And maybe there will be illness and maybe chas v'shalom death. Nevertheless, when we experience those difficult moments, a moment of sadness, a moment of tragedy, a moment of shortcoming, a moment of failing, we will sing a song about the moments of victory. When David HaMelech lost his child, he sang a song for all the moments that he had him. And that is a penetrating lesson and a beautiful message. That is the Mizmor that David HaMelech sings. And recently, a number of years ago, a friend of mine went through a very challenging ordeal. His own child, who he had waited for a very long time, together with his wife, who suffered through difficult periods of infertility, they were finally blessed with a child. But the child was born prematurely. The newborn baby fought for his life. And then Nebuch, the child, was taken to Yeshiva Shel Mala, to the heavenly yeshiva where all children who die learn. And these parents who had waited so long were grief-stricken. I called him to be menachem him, to comfort him. And he told me that he named his child, together with his wife, he named his child a very, very special name. The name was Yehuda. To thank Hashem for that precious moment that the child was alive, even though the child died. But in a remarkable display of faith, this individual, this couple, displayed the faith of a David HaMelech, Al-Mus Labein, on the death and the tragic passing of their beautiful, precious child. And whenever we learn Tehillim, I always like to think to myself, in modern day life, when would I recite this chapter? And I think the answer is, we would try to recite it, not at a moment of jubilation and joy, but at a moment when perhaps we lost something that we thought we had, but we lost out on. A number of years ago, somebody offered me an opportunity to be part of a business deal. It would have made my life a lot easier, or so I thought. I could taste it. We were so close, and then it fell through. Obviously, afterwards, I saw why it wasn't meant to be and why it wasn't good for me. But at those moments, try the best you can to thank Hashem for everything that you do have, even though this time you lost out. And we move on to the next chapter, the next parak of Tehillim, which is the chapter of Mizmor Yud. And the 10th chapter actually begins with no introduction whatsoever. David HaMelech jumps right into it. In fact, Avram Fried had a very, very beautiful song a number of years ago. Lama Hashem Tamoid Meirachoik. Why, Hashem, do you stand at a distance? Why from a distance when I need you close? And this is a question that everybody sometimes feels. Sometimes we feel distant from Hashem. And David HaMelech does not have time for pleasantries. He doesn't have time to be able to introduce the Mizmor as a Lamnat Sayach, to introduce it as a moment when it's a Mizmor. He just says, Lama Hashem Tamoid Berachoik. Why are you standing so far away from me, Hashem? Talim li tois batzara, you hide from me in moments of trouble and tribulation. And I think it's important to remember that sometimes we can't take our time with tefillah. Sometimes we need to jump right into it. I'm reminded of a story that happened with my neighbor. My neighbor, Reb Chaim Shapiro, Olav Shalom, the famous author of Go My Son. He lived right next door to me, was nifta over 20 years ago, but I remember he told me a story. He told me that he once came to the Kaisel Ma'aravi. It was shortly after the war. If you haven't read Go My Son, please do so. It's a remarkable book about a young boy who fought through the most insurmountable odds. He served in the Russian army, and he overcame the Nazis. It was just a remarkable book. He rebuilt his life, beautiful family, and he was very, very talented. But Nebuch, he had a cousin who lost everything in the war and did not rebuild his life. And he told me that one time he came to the Kaisel Ma'aravi. It was the first time that he had seen the Kaisel. And he walked up to the Kaisel like this. And only a Chaim Shapiro or somebody who has gone through similar circumstances can have such a conversation with Hashem. And he walks up to the Kaisel and he says, "Oh, no, you don't." Now, for you and I, that's terrible chutzpah. We would never, ever address Hashem in that way. But when you are holding Hashem's hand every moment of your life, then sometimes you can cry out, "Lama Hashem ta'amoid me'rochok." Why are you standing so far away from me, Hashem? I need you at this moment. And that's what this kapitel is all about. But the truth is that the kapitel focuses on another idea, something that we've addressed before, but is a very, very common and prevalent theme in Tehillim. And that is the concept of begavas rosha yidlak ani. It's the idea of in the wicked one's haughtiness, he hunts down the poor. A lot of times, a person doesn't realize that gaiva is going to destroy not only the individual, but it's going to destroy his relationship with Hashem. Perhaps we mentioned before that there's an old Western adage, there ain't room in this town for the two of us. And the sheriff comes out and he tells the gangster, you better leave town, because it's either me or you. And the sheriff, in his boldness, cries out to the man and he says, you better run. Well, that really comes, lahavdil, from a Maimer Chazal, where Hashem says, if there's a balgaiva, ein aniva hu yecholim ladur b'dira achas. I cannot live with a balgaiva in the same room, in the same world. And that does not bode well for you, Mr. Balgaiva, because Hashem is not going anywhere. And that means, unfortunately, you might have a very difficult time. There is a Maimer Chazal, there's a medrash that says, and it was made into a song by Yossi Green, Anovim, Anovim, Higia Zman Geulaschem. That there will come a time when Mashiach cries out, when the Ribbono Shel Olam cries out, Anovim, Anovim, humble ones, humble ones. Higia Zman Geulaschem, the time for your Geula has come. He does not say, Talmidei Chachamim, the time has come for your Geula. He doesn't say, Tzadikim, the time has come for your Geula. Although we know that being a Talmid Chacham and a Tzadik is, of course, the highest level. But what will bring Mashiach? What is the Ribbono Shel Olam looking for? Anivus, humility, because when a person is humble, then he's able to overcome the Yetzer Hara. He's able to put Hashem first, to put others first, to live as Hashem wants us to live. And that's the concept. There's a beautiful little vart, Al tivieni regel gaiva. Don't bring me to the crutch of gaiva. Regel gaiva doesn't literally mean a crutch, it means to the foot of gaiva. But gaiva is a crutch. If a person is comfortable, a person will not become a bal gaiva. Only when a person's uncomfortable in his own skin and he has to be out there and brash and try to brag about things that he's really insecure about. Al tivieni regel gaiva, the Baal Shem Tov says, don't bring me to the crutch of gaiva. I'll end with this beautiful thought. One time I took one of my children to visit Reb Shalom Kamenetsky in Philadelphia. He was in 8th grade. He needed a little pick-me-up, a little boost. And I brought him to Reb Shalom, and Reb Shalom told me a vart, or he told him a vart. And the vart sounds like a Hasidic vart, but it's really a vart from the Vilna Gaon. The Pasuk in Mishlei tells us, Yehalalucha zar v'loi picha. A stranger should praise you, and the praise should not come from your own mouth. Says the Vilna Gaon, Yehalalucha zar, a stranger should praise you. V'loi, and if a stranger doesn't praise you, picha, the praise must come from your own mouth. When David HaMelech is warning us about gaiva, he's telling us don't be about gaiva. But you know what we have to have? We have to have a healthy self-esteem, a healthy ego. A person needs to feel good about himself. And the Vilna Gaon is telling us that if a stranger does not praise you, and you feel like you're lacking a feeling of self-worth, then it's as simple as looking in the mirror and saying, what am I good at? What do I do well? What are my strong points? And in this manner, a person will feel good about himself. He'll feel confident to be able to serve Hashem properly. Thank you.